Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. We have a gentleman today, Paul Salter. Paul is a mindset and performance coach. He is a credentialed hypnotherapist. He's a keynote speaker and he has his own podcast called The Scratch Golfer's Mindset. Paul, this is going to be a wonderful podcast because I need you to be my caddy when I play golf because I am a second shot All-American. If you let me do it again, I'm like all world. So let's just jump right into this. There's somebody listening. They're trying to figure out, do I want to listen to this guy? What's this about? If we would go play a round of golf and I give you permission to coach me, which a lot of people don't want to be coached on a golf course, and understandably so. What's the most common symptom that almost all amateur golfers universally deal with? From the first tee shot off number one, when you're already carrying the weight of 18 holes in one shot. You think the whole day is going to depend on this one shot because there's like 3 or 4 people watching in addition to the guys you're playing with. Take it away, Paul.
Yeah, well, right out of the gate, that first tee experience exposes so much opportunity for growth. And the message I want to make sure comes through crystal clear is that these challenges that we're going to dig into today, Craig, they're not isolated to just the golf course. They show up everywhere. I tell my clients and my podcast listeners all the time, you bring your whole self to the golf course, to the boardroom, to your home. So these problems are everywhere. But on that first tee, what is exposed is how much you care about what other people think. And as human beings, we're all hardwired to belong. You know, we all have 3 core fears. We fear judgment, abandonment, and rejection. Because centuries ago, if you were judged, rejected, or ultimately abandoned by your tribe, guess what? You either starved to death or you got eaten by that classic saber-toothed tiger. Those same threats don't actually exist today, but in our nervous system, they feel more real and visceral than ever. So the one thing we have to keep in mind, what can you control on that first tee box? Always, of course, and you know this better than I do, your effort, your attitude. But I'm a big fan of coming back to your breath in that moment. And even before we're in that moment, if you're someone listening and you struggle with whether you want to label it first tee, nerves, jitters, the visualization element, seeing and experiencing a successful tee shot, a successful execution of your process before and at address makes you show up that day feeling as if you've already done it 100 times. And through repetition, you numb and remain in a place where you're not actually affected by what's going on around you, more easier to tap into your process and let her rip.
Okay, so you said a lot there, and it's all true. I've lived it. And I'm sure everyone else has too, not just in golf, but in other things too. How do you focus on you and not focus on people pleasing and approval and caring? You know, let's say, for example, you're meeting someone on a golf course for a business opportunity. And this is the first time you've met the person in person and you're running late to the tee box. And so you're hustling and you don't even get a chance to shank a couple on the practice range, on the driving range, because you're going straight to the first tee box. Why? How do you stop caring about what other people think?
Yeah, it's a big question because really what's underneath that is an uncertainty of, am I enough? Am I worthy and deserving of love, attention, recognition, success? You know, see, these are the core beliefs that every single one of us has. You know, each one of us has a belief about ourselves, others, life, and I also like to throw in there money. And all these beliefs are formed during our early childhood years, particularly more or less before the age of 7. And what's happening here is when you struggle with what I call, you know, chronic people pleasing, nice guy syndrome, or constantly caring what other people think, underneath it is really a reflection of you don't think you're good enough, worthy, or deserving to do well, to be perceived in a positive or successful way. So right there in that moment you described, you know, we could talk about setting an intention. We can talk about showing up, taking a couple of breaths and being very intentional in what you do and what you say. And that's all well and good. It might work for the moment. But really where the opportunity for lasting change resides is going inward, digging into when, why, and how did you learn these beliefs and their accompanying behaviors. And that's the opportunity for growth.
Okay, so what I heard you say was who you showed up with, who you showed up as is what you're going to reveal on the first tee. And the guys that show up an hour, 2 hours early and go hammer 2 buckets of balls on the range, hoping that that's going to fix their inadequacies and it's going to make them like feel better about themselves so that they can feel more confident about their game. They think it's about the game more than who they are. And the game is what they're doing. It's not who they are. And so what I heard you basically say there was you fix your golf game before you show up at the golf course.
Golf is one of the best mirrors of your own personal development journey. So by working on yourself and digging into acknowledging, taking ownership, and then doing the work to let go of those, what I call destructive mindset programs, the beliefs we talked about, those behaviors, you get the positive ripple effect in every area of your life, but especially on the golf course, if that's your place of passion, play, and where you seek results and growth.
Okay. So what's your definition of anxiety and stress that people feel when they're on a golf course and they're hovering over arguably a straight putt uphill, makeable, but it matters because it's a chance to get their first birdie? Why did they conjure up this stress and this anxiety?
Yeah, well, first, they're not in the present moment. They've allowed themselves to time travel to the outcome. So, for example, they stick 1 to 3 foot from the pin. They have a 3-foot putt for birdie. They should, and that's a magic buzzword if you hear yourself saying that, they should make that putt. And they get so latched onto the should, they remove themselves from the present moment and therefore their processes. And guess what? Probably 9 times out of 10, an amateur is going to miss that putt if they put that type of pressure on themselves. Underneath it all, we come back to that core I shared earlier. You care too much about what people think. You expect you should make that putt. You put pressure because if you miss a 3-foot putt, maybe you have a story that your playing partners think you suck, you don't belong, and maybe they'll kick you out of your playing group because you're bringing the group down, you're slowing up the pace. And that threat of being, kicked out or annexed or exiled from your tribe, like we mentioned centuries ago, it's just as prominent today.
Okay, so what's the fix?
Again, here we have to filter these questions. If what I'm sharing with you right now is resonating with you, I'm going to invite you to get non-judgmentally curious. And what I mean by that is through whatever type of reflection process you have, journaling, meditation, silence, a walk with your dog, you need to first be very honest about some of those mental and emotional shortcomings you're experiencing on the course. And when you pick one, for example, I've got that short putt opportunity and you have this terrible self-talk, I always miss short putts. You have to get really curious. Where did this come from? Why do I feel this way? And when you start to follow that trail of breadcrumbs, sooner or later, it's going to become clear there were moments in your life or people in your life that you picked up this behavior from. In fact, that behavior is not yours. Maybe it's dad's because dad took you golfing all the time when you were younger, and that's how he behaved. And that's what you absorbed as that sponge-like young individual. So through a non-judgmental lens of curiosity, you can work your way back to the origin and begin creating metaphorical distance or space between you and that behavior, which helps you begin to separate yourself and let go of it.
Okay, so curiosity and awareness are somewhat similar, but most people don't have either. And the reason why is because they're not thinking they're not tapped into their subconscious. They're mainly just dealing with the conscious. So let's just stick with golf. You pull or push that short putt and you don't miss the birdie. You end up with a bogey because you do what a lot of times people do in golf. They make an easy shot into the next shot actually being harder. You couple putt. Do you make mental notes on the course? Do you use your phone and write down, hey, on hole number 3 on the green, I felt this, and then put it to bed? Do you, like debrief on the round, maybe later that day and go, okay, let's walk through that. Let's not walk through my shots. Let's walk through the regulation of my emotion related to each of those shots. And where did my emotion spike? When did I have more confidence than I normally do? Perhaps when did I have less? So that you can start connecting the dots to your origin or the root cause of that issue.
Spot on. So all of the above is the answer. And what I mean by that, and that was really well said, Craig, is number one, your job during a round of golf is just to collect data. So you're setting up, preparing, and being intentional and methodical in every single routine that you execute. And when things don't go well, you're not sitting and stopping in the moment and judging and nitpicking. you're on to the next round. You've got that next shot mentality, but you're keeping a mental note because after the rounds, like you alluded to, we're going to do a full, what I call after round report. Just like in the military, they use an after action report. We're doing an after round report. And I always create a unique set of prompts and questions for my clients that detail some of the things they need to be on the lookout for. So like you said, we can begin to spot patterns. I was 3 under with 3 to play and I finished 2 over because I started to press. I felt that anxiety, that tension in my stomach or in my chest. All of those are clues. And one thing that my clients get incredibly annoyed about me pressing and asking all the time is, how did it feel? What did it feel like in your body? Because emotion is literally energy in motion. That's the root derivative of the word. But when you can get very aware that when I'm anxious, I feel tension in my chest, that's a clue. Not only does it allow you to get proactive in front of it, some breath work, some other surface level strategies. After the round, again, we can dig into that. We can see when, where, and why you learn to be anxious in these types of situations, and we can diffuse it, release it, and unlearn it.
Okay. I'm very familiar with everything you're talking about. But 10 years ago, you would be talking Chinese to me. So for those guys out there, those people out there, this sounds like Chinese. How can you make this relatable to someone who, my past version of myself, that didn't really understand that, your body holds emotions and that it wasn't your technique. The reason why you missed the shot wasn't your technique. It was that you were unable to control your emotions and that you were getting ahead of yourself. You were scorecard watching. You were scoreboard watching. You were counting you were at the cusp of your best round ever with those 3 holes to go. But yet you blew it because you couldn't be fully present. Give everybody not a PhD level perspective here. Give them like a middle school, high school level of how do you even find this curiosity and this awareness that you even have this stuff going on.
So let's use you as an example. 10 years ago, did you understand or have awareness of at least 90% of what you needed to do to improve your golf game?
I did.
Did you have awareness of the importance and value of a pre-shot routine?
I did.
Okay. So I imagine those listening do as well. And the reason I bring up those 2 low-hanging fruit is the crux of what's happening here isn't a lack of knowledge problem. And if it is a lesson, Google, YouTube can quickly fill the knowledge gap. When you know what to do, such as the value of a pre-shot routine, every single shot, and you're still not doing it, that right there is indicative of a mindset problem. And if we run with that, let's do this. You know the value of a pre-shot routine and you execute it 50% of the time. Because maybe there's a part of you that believes, holy shit, if I execute it 100% of the time, I'm going to become a single-digit handicap. I'm going to be scratched. And that means standing out. That means more attention, more pressure, more responsibility. And that scares you. It's uncomfortable. So you have a pattern of shrinking yourself to fit in and belong. So what I'm getting at here to now give you the one simple elementary takeaway is if you know what to do and you're not doing it, that's your area of exploration with curiosity. Why aren't you doing it? What are you afraid of? What do you believe to be true?
I agree with that. I think the other aspect that happens in golf is it's normally played in a group, and very few people go out and play 18 holes by themselves. And even if they do show up at a golf course to play 18 holes, they get matched up with 3 other people that are playing. What I think is one of the most challenging, it's been for me, is the idea of when somebody's upset at their game, having too much empathy for them. And when they're killing it, having a little envy and not being able to stay on my game because I'm influenced by the people that are around me. Mm-hmm. How do you coach people to be play the inside game more than the outside game? Because you can't dismiss the idea that some guy's losing his mind because, he thinks he's the second coming of, Scotty Scheffler, and you can't understand why he's getting bogeys, those type of things. It's like, it's there.
Yeah. It's funny. Just the other day, so we're recording on a Tuesday. Sunday, I played around, got paired up with a stranger. Good guy. The most negative, nasty self-talk I have ever experienced. And I've heard some things, and it was outright aloud. So the coach in me, as you can imagine, wants to put my coaching hat, wants to help give him a nugget to at least shut up and keep it inward. But having experienced this like you, I know that doesn't help me in my game. It takes me out of my process, my flow state. So what's really helpful here on either side of the spectrum is having a proactive solution in place ahead of time. If you get paired with somebody who's on the very negative side, what's your action step to return to your process? It might be an intention or a mantra, or it might be like I did, very much modeling positive, productive self-talk and doubling down on that. If it's somebody who's incredibly good, he's way better than you, rather than feeling envious, can you challenge yourself to find one nugget to take away to apply to your own game to get better? But having an actual intention on how to handle each of those situations ahead of time spares you from wasting mental bandwidth on trying to find a solution in the moment, so you have that energy to remain focused on your process.
So how did it turn out with that golfer?
Well, candidly, I used all of Monday. I used all of that information to record a podcast on it on Monday about the importance of being your best coach. But for me, I stuck to it. I didn't say a single word to him about his self-talk the entire round. I had a great round, and it was just a wonderful reminder of what is possible, just how capable I am of keeping that strategic tunnel vision.
Okay. So you've mentioned breathwork early on a couple different times. That's something that I started doing probably 8 years ago. LeBron James does it during timeouts. Quarterbacks, everybody that shoots a free throw does it before they shoot a free throw. They don't even know they're doing it. They take a breath. It relaxes them. They started it at some point in time. They saw someone else do it. They thought they would try it, makes them feel relaxed, so they do it. But in golf, one of my biggest challenges is, let's say you're not walking, but you're in the cart, so you get a cart partner, and you get in a deep conversation, something super dope about relationships, whatever it is, parenting. Then all of a sudden you're at your ball, and you got to flip the switch. And sometimes you can do your pre-shot routine by knowing the distance, the club, visualizing where you want to hit it and how you want to hit it type thing, and still not be fully present because you're still thinking about what you were talking about. How do you teach people to pivot and shift and kind of like step into that, I call it a performance bubble, and then step back out?
Yeah. You need a trigger. I love that you have the visual and the literal definition of a performance bubble. I use something similar. You've heard it, everyone who's golfed before, the think box and the play box, but that precious space, you need a trigger. So for me, and what that looks like with a lot of my clients is the moment for me, it's my club, but a client puts their hand on their rangefinder or starts to grab the club, the grip of the club or the taking the covering off the club, that's the cue, the trigger to initiate the routine of taking a breath. And that's something that I'll drill with my clients using visualization, and we'll drill it every time they're on the practice range as well, so that it becomes automatic on the course when they do happen to get caught up in some good conversation. But you need that triggering behavior, because every routine, every habit has the same core parts. There's a trigger or a cue, there's a routine and a reward. So in this case, hand on the club initiates the breathing routine. The reward is you're present and able to execute to the best of your ability.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned is if you're playing behind a slow group, as soon as you put the golf club in your hand, you get this like business pressure. Like, hey, it's your turn. But if you're holding that club for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, waiting on somebody that's playing slow, now by the time it's your turn to swing, you got this extra load of stress. So what I've been doing recently is not touching my club until time to touch my club. Okay. So in your description is a word that maybe not everybody understands. Maybe people define it differently, but you're a hypnotherapist. How does that play into this? And how do you do it? What kind of impact does it make on your clients?
Great question. So hypnosis, the best place is always to start with what it is not, because many of you listening probably immediately go to me dangling a pocket watch. You think I am going to get Craig to cluck like a chicken, put him to sleep, or maybe you've seen it at a comedy show on a cruise ship. So I'm here to tell you, technically, yes, that is hypnosis. It is unlike anything I do or use with my clients. Hypnosis is not magic. It's not mind control. It's not brainwashing. In fact, it's actually a natural state of mind that you, me, everybody listening has been in multiple times today. Hypnosis is a word to describe which brain wave you are primarily producing, and those are theta brain waves. And when you're producing theta brain waves, you find yourself in this sweet spot between slight relaxation and full-on sleep. And it's in that sweet spot that you experience right when you wake up, when you're caught up in a good book, listening to Craig's podcast, or on the golf course. So it is normal, natural, and safe. But when you go there intentionally, Craig, two big benefits occur. Number one, we're able to quiet that harsh inner critic, that judgmental voice that says, you suck, that'll never work, why bother? We sidestep all that noise and negativity. Number two, we're able to connect with your subconscious mind. Now, your subconscious mind influences 95% of what you do every single day. It is home to your memories, your emotions, your beliefs, and your habits. Spoiler alert, that collectively is who you are. That makes up your identity. So through hypnosis, we can uncover the origin, for example, of where you learned this performance anxiety, when you learned to feel like an imposter, all of those shortcomings and surface level sabotaging behaviors that you hear thrown around in the mindset space, all of those are learned. Hypnosis gives us an opportunity to uncover when, why, and how you learned them, and to do the work necessary to unlearn them. The immediate benefit, the energy you need to build the beliefs and behaviors that take you to that next level of success.
Is it fair to say that when you're in a flow state, you're surrendering to your subconscious and you're not overthinking, which is a lot of times your conscious brain?
Yeah, Timothy Galway, he's the author of The Inner Game of Tennis and The Inner Game of Golf. And I love his analogy, but he talks about self one and self two. Self one being your conscious mind, which is all your thinking. So if we go to the golf course analogy again, it's all of the swing thoughts, the intentionality in your pre-shot routine. And self two is your subconscious mind. Self two is your body. Think about this. You breathe and you digest and you absorb unconsciously, automatically. So that flow state is you surrendering and passing the torch, if you will, to your body. Your body knows how to hit every single shot on the course. Many of you feel probably you're a scratch golfer on the range and then you're a 12 handicap on the course. That's because you have so much mental interference impeding your ability to let your body or subconscious take over and do what it knows how to do.
I've been through that stage of being very technical and having, it's almost like if you watch a quarterback throw a football, he doesn't aim it, he just slings it. And if you look at golfers, they don't worry about if their club face is going to be square or not. They just swing the club. But when you're struggling, you start thinking about those kind of things, like how am I throwing the ball? How am I swinging the club? You get very mechanical, very robotic, very the opposite of being successful, whatever that is in golf.
Yeah, it's a recipe for underperformance, to put it politely.
Okay, so how do you, in your world, how do you coach people to, let me start out by saying that belief in who you are and confidence in what you do, I see differently. I see your belief as a choice that you have to make every single day. You have to believe in, Paul has to believe in Paul. You have to, you were a former professional poker player. You know all about going all in. You get the choice every morning when you wake up to go all in on you. And that's something you should do, because if you don't, no one else will either. And so you have to be 100%er on your belief in who you are, your identity. But your confidence is different. If you haven't hit a 58-degree wedge in 5 years and you pull it out of your bag for the first time and there's $100 or something on the shot, you're probably not going to be the most confident. So confidence is something that we can have, 80% confidence in one aspect of our game, maybe 100% confidence in another aspect. And if we want to get them all at a high level, we have to do reps so we can get some small wins and show ourselves that actually we do know what we're doing. But how do you help people improve their confidence? Because confidence is so important in sports, in life, period.
Bingo. So you said the magic word, repetitions, and I'll add in there preparation repetitions. It's no secret that we have what's known as the 10,000 hour rule. You have to put in the time and the work, because simultaneously during the process of putting in the work, you're further strengthening that belief. As a byproduct, confidence now has the bandwidth to expand as well. But where many people struggle, they understand what I just said logically, but when it comes to the actual building, is their own, what I call destructive mindset programs, get in the way of them putting in the quality repetitions. There was something going viral on social media the other day about Scotty Scheffler, his first and second year at Texas. He'd put in the time, but when he's on the range, he's on his phone all the time. And his coach made a joke that inevitably that became his wife. He was texting his then girlfriend at the time, but he's distracted. He's not putting in the quality of repetitions. And most people, again, we come back to know what to do, but the subconscious finds so many sneaky ways to impede them from doing what they need to do. If you can find a way to be candid, honest, and take ownership of what needs to be done to improve and then execute, that's the secret sauce to cultivating confidence. And the more you feel confident, the easier it is to grow that confidence.
Confidence has momentum.
Yes, even better said.
Right? Because when you start gaining some confidence, it just, I mean, you watch basketball when guys hit a couple threes, all of a sudden it's like they're just throwing it up and the basket looks like the ocean. They can hit, it just goes in.
Yeah, just like putting, where that hole suddenly looks like it's massive. You can drain it from anywhere. It's that flow state. It's locked in. It's that deep belief and confidence coming together to build that momentum you said so well.
Well, one of the things that I think everybody has a choice of is you can doubt your beliefs and believe in your doubts, or you can believe in your beliefs. And most of us find a way to doubt our beliefs or believe in our doubts in some aspect of our life.
You know, what's interesting though, and most people might not be aware of this, is your beliefs aren't yours. It's estimated that 95% of your core beliefs are formed by the age of 7. You didn't have any say in them. However, you're the only one who can do something about it. So this comes back to what you said so well. It is a choice. It's a constant commitment to, first and foremost, why do I believe X, Y, and Z about myself, golf, life, otherwise? And then B, doing the work to ingrain or upgrade the belief, because a belief is nothing more than a filter through which you see the world. It helps influence your decisions and actions. So it does take conscious commitment. And when you lean into that, it's easier to put up that lens, so to speak, so you can continue to see the positives or the opportunities.
Well, here's what's interesting. Because those fundamental beliefs are formed and adopted before 7, that typically means your mom and dad or your big brother, big sister tells you who you are. And then you show up at school and your teacher tells you who you are. Your friends tell you who you are. Your coach tells you who you are. And it's very difficult once that momentum's going. I mean, it's like a river. It's hard to just jump out of the river and say, I'm not going to buy what everybody's selling. Okay. I'm going to start believing something else about me. And I think that happens for a lot of people when they're in college. It's a great time to kind of figure out who you are, or your first job out of college when you find out it isn't what you thought it would be and doesn't bring you joy and everything else that you thought it would. So my question is, when we adopt these beliefs about who we are, how most people aren't even aware that their belief is an adopted belief. Failures sometimes cause people to rethink where they're at and where they're going, the patterns they're living, things like that. But how do you, when you're coaching someone that doesn't even have that awareness, how do you help them rewire their beliefs?
Yeah. So candidly, it's worth stating, my type of work is the deep work that is built upon discomfort. It is emotionally charged and it's hard. And it's why it's not most people's first go-to when they want to achieve success. I'm typically the last resort for many people at all walks and levels of success. Because again, we talk about beliefs being learned, people choosing our beliefs. It's essentially like we go through life and everybody hands us a puzzle piece. And those puzzle pieces, when put together, form our identity. And we wake up one day and we realize, well, shit, I was only responsible for 1 or 2 of those pieces. I've got these pieces from everybody else. And the opportunity that awaits us is when we get in that hypnotic state. Again, we're producing those theta brainwaves. When we're in that state, we're highly malleable. The other term for that is we're very suggestible. Well, here's the cool first full circle moment. Before the age of 7, when we're picking up all of those puzzle pieces or beliefs, we're primarily producing theta brainwaves. So by returning to that state through hypnosis, we have an opportunity to actually uncover, wait, what do I actually think about X? Why do I think that way? How does that make me feel? And we can do what needs to be done to release, remove, and build what's actually going to serve us, what's true to who we are at our authentic core. But it's getting into that state where we can then capitalize on the benefit of theta brainwave production, and then B, on the principle of neuroplasticity, which is just a big word to say our brain is capable of making changes. Habits aren't set in stone forever. You are physically, emotionally, and mentally able to change, evolve, and grow.
Here's what I'd say about the big word neuroplasticity is the idea that the older you get, the more that you are in congruence with what other people told you you were, it becomes hardwired. And there's a lot of people like my age, they're hardwired. There's not a lot of neuroplasticity. They're not like their curiosity's gone. They're not thinking about, oh, what could it be? I mean, when you're 12, you're like, your curiosity's maxed out. It's like everywhere you go, every time you go to a new place, every time you meet new people, curiosity's, at the front of everything. But when you're in the back nine of your life, your neuroplasticity is less. And what I have found is that when my neuroplasticity is the best, the days are the slowest because I'm enjoying a new experience daily. Where when I have more narrow-mindedness and less neuroplasticity, the days are flying because every day is the same, because it's the same as yesterday, because I'm not curious. I love the idea of hypnotherapy. I'll have to try it because it'd be interesting to. What are the outcomes for most of your clients?
Yeah, so I'll share research first before I give my own answer here. There was a really cool big research review done about 50 years ago, and it looked at all of the available studies on traditional therapy versus hypnotherapy. And what researchers found was that those subjects participating in traditional therapy, they experienced what they called a positive impact rate of 38%. Nothing to write home about. After an average of 600 sessions, which is 10 plus years of weekly therapy. Again, doesn't seem to be efficient. Conversely, those participating in the hypnotherapy experienced an average positive impact of 93%. It's an A minus, pretty damn good, after an average of 6 sessions. Now, I'm not here ever to overpromise. Everybody's experience is different, but I will tell you this. When you go straight to the core of the problem, not how it presents and manifests consciously at the surface level, when you get to the core fear or belief that is really driving the procrastination, the performance anxiety, the perfectionism, you have a hell of a lot of a greater opportunity to make changes exponentially faster, because once you nip that in the bud, you get a positive ripple effect into multiple areas of your life.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it changed my life, which is why you and I are here today. It just is very powerful. And it's somebody has to feel called, open, and ready to do the work. Like I mentioned earlier, it is uncomfortable because every time you start to peel back a layer and confront a belief, it's a direct threat to your identity. And your subconscious is programmed to keep you safe. And when it starts to receive these threats, your nervous system starts to freak out. Having that place of accountability, support, and safety to go through this integration process is essential. But on the other side of it is just limitless opportunity, fulfillment, peace, confidence, and so on.
Okay. At your discretion, and this is asking you to be vulnerable, what happened in your life that puts you in a position where you were open-minded to do hypnotherapy, that there's a 100% chance it made a positive impact on you based on the fact that you're doing it now. I find that a lot of people do what they do because something that they experienced led them through a space that they want to help other people do the same thing. What was the jam that you were in that caused you to jump into this?
Yeah. So I had an awesome coaching business. I was doing well on paper. Everything looked great. And we joked about this before we hit record. I kind of reached a crossroads in my life where I had this irrepressible passion for the game of poker. And I had a moment, I was like, dude, it's now or never. Are you going to do it or are you going to talk about it? So I went all in on poker. But about 6 months in, I felt like I was out studying, out working everybody. I had the coaches, and I still felt like I was lighting money on fire. So I asked for help rather than giving up. I gave it one last chance. I hired a mindset and performance coach who happened to be a hypnotherapist. And very quickly, she helped expose and unravel my immense fear of loss, my scarcity mindset, my ability that when I have the slightest amount of winnings, $50 at the table when I was first started out, I did everything I could to protect it, not grow it. And when you're passive at the poker table, that is a recipe to be exploited and to lose all of your money very quickly. So for me, it was a massive fear of loss. It was a scarcity mindset, and it was an attachment of my self-worth to my results, which you can imagine was considerably tanking as my results were going in the wrong direction. And she helped me uncover and let go a lot of these beliefs around money, ultimately helped me shift from a scarcity to an abundance mindset, which produced fruitfully on the poker table, but as we alluded to, was so potent and impactful. I walked away from poker. I got my credentialing as a hypnotherapist, and I haven't looked back since.
That's wonderful.
What's funny too, and I'll add on to that, and I will shut up, I promise, is simultaneously in my business as all this was happening, I made the same amount of money, like literally within a couple $1,000s for 5 years in a row. The only things that increased during that time were the amount of hours I worked and the amount of stress and anxiety I experienced because of these patterns that were showing up in multiple areas of my life. And guess what? As I worked to uncover and let go of them, we shot back up again.
Okay, so let's go through a hypothetical here. I go through hypnotherapy. I find out whatever my root cause is, my fear, okay, my doubt, my hang up. The knowledge of it, what percent of that solves the problem? And then what is the follow up that actually seals the deal in terms of putting that behind you so that you can realize that that doesn't serve you anymore? It never served you and it's not true. All those kind of things that discount that belief. But just the awareness of it, how much of that is a victory?
The awareness is a victory because you need the awareness to do different. And if you want to achieve different, you've got to be and do different. So the awareness is essential. And that opportunity for a different perspective, or reframe, if you will, it's 100% essential. It's 100% of the equation because without it, no change can occur. However, and I believe we speak the same language here, we've heard the quote before, knowledge is power, not without action. And that's where what I call is the application and integration process. It's one thing to understand. I'll give you a hypothetical example that's actually far more common than you might think. 8-year-old boy has to give a presentation in front of his classmates, forgets his lines, he's laughed at, his teacher makes a remark that he's a no good for nothing, he's embarrassed, he's afraid to speak up, he shies away from speaking opportunities in the future as his career unfolds. And we're able to uncover like, oh, you know what? I see why I picked up that performance anxiety when speaking in public and why I carried doubt and uncertainty. That awareness is good. It helps to create some metaphorical space and gives him the understanding that that anxiety is just a piece of him. It's that puzzle piece. It's not who he is. We still need the application and integration of that. So we have to help him turn his lights back on in terms of stepping into those situations, building the surface level toolkit to support the under the surface toolkit, the breath work, the practice, the visualization. So he continues to get one micro dose of stress, discomfort, exposure after the next to build his tolerance. But when they work hand in hand, we can streamline that process.
Love it. Besides breath work and visualization, what else is in that toolbox?
A practice of silence and solitude. There's a quote I read, and I swear to this day, I don't know where to attribute it, but the voice of your subconscious mind is silence. So I don't care if it's journaling, you call it meditation, you literally sit down and close your eyes for 5 minutes, but having some type of daily practice to shut out the noise, social media, the internet, email, your phone, and reconnect with you and who you are is integral to ensuring you are taking aligned action with where you want to go.
I do believe our culture is the antithesis of that. Our culture, just because we have think about all the kids, all the people that are under, like, I don't know what age it is, 24, haven't ever known life without a smartphone.
Crazy.
So like the idea of growing up in the country or even in the city and going to the park and hanging out and taking off your socks and shoes and walking in a creek, that nobody does it anymore. Yeah. Kids don't do that anymore. And the adults that do it pay big money to go on retreats. So they can get back to nature and connect to themselves. And so it's almost comical that what is free, people don't appreciate it. When it's expensive, they do.
It's fascinating. But you said it's something really important earlier, that curiosity as a kid, like we lose that as we get older. Society robs us from it because everything's so readily available. Any answer we need or piece of information. I often joke that as a hypnotherapist, really what I'm doing is dehypnotizing you from all of the bullshit you've picked up from society over the years to help you return to that authentic kid-like state.
So let's go back to golf. Let's finish this up on a golf course. Think about the first time a person plays golf. Doesn't matter if they're 13 or 25. And they just grab the club and swing. And it might be ugly. They might have a big slice. But it's like you can tell the people that think too much on a golf course because they have this heavy energy. They're stressed out for every shot. And it's like exhausting to play with people like that. It's exhausting to be that guy, right? So how do you recapture that childlike freedom and peace and joy and all those fruits that people now call flow? and zone and all these other things. It's all free.
Yeah.
It's all freedom.
Why'd you begin playing in the first place? More often than not, maybe it was camaraderie with your buddies. Maybe you fall in love with the pursuit of excellence. Maybe you find it play or detaching from the other stressful components of your life. Too often we get so fixated, especially in golf. There's no shortage of opportunity to read up on the technical skills to do every single shot out there, let alone to geek out on all of the equipment upgrades that come out every single day. And it makes it very easy. I just got back from the PGA show, the big expo, and it's just ridiculous. I can't believe how much there is. I digress, but we lose sight of why did we start playing in the first place? And in the beginning of the conversation, I shared golf is a mirror of your own personal development journey. And when you can learn to reconnect with your why and fall in love with the process of growth, progress, and improvement, it becomes much easier to find all the little wins, the positives, the silver linings of every experience. And when you start stacking those, you look forward to stacking the next. And just like that confidence momentum builds, this progress momentum builds too. And progress is addicting. It's fun. It's enjoyable. And that's where we need to get back to.
Amen to that, brother. Okay, someone listening wants to reach out. They can look in the show notes, but steer them in the right direction where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can learn more about me and my coaching at thegolfhypnotherapist.com, or come learn more, the Scratch Golfers Mindset Podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Paul, thank you so much. I enjoyed our convo today.
Yeah, thank you. Absolute pleasure. I appreciate you having me on, Craig.
Thank you, Paul. Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.